and saying the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lorraine, could you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Yes. Linda Avanzano. Here. Melvoin Benson. John Biscotto.
Here.
Larry Cerisi. William Mudge.
Here.
Kimberly Page.
Here.
Richard Welsh.
Here.
Julia Held.
Here.
Thank you.
And Lorraine, could you go ahead and go through the calendars?
July 4th, Independence Day, schools and offices closed. July 9th, Facility Subcommittee meeting, 4:30 p.m., Central Administration Building. And there's not much in July. August 14th will be our next school committee meeting. It'll be a work session at 7 p.m. at North Kingstown High School. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have some presentations and recognitions to do, so we'll come on down here and do those first.
Are Ben and Aisha here this evening? Come on up. Good evening, everybody. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce you to Aisha McAdams and to Ben Stewart. Aisha has the honor of winning the state championship in the 3,000-meter girls outdoor track. And Ben has the achievement of winning the state championship for hurdles, boys outdoor track. So congratulations to both of you.
Do this next year, because you're a senior next year, right? Yeah. And you're going to be a junior next year, right? No.
Yeah, congratulations. We also have, what we would like to do tonight is to give a certificate of appreciation to our three representatives, student representatives to the school committee. I'm not sure. Stephen, you're here, right? Stephen Chevalier, congratulations. Thank you very much. I don't see Brenton or Michael. Are they here? No.
Michael's not here.
Brenton, are you here? I'm missing you? No. Well, the other two are Brenton Bowerly and Michael Avanzano. And they have also done an outstanding job this year, and we wish them well, but they couldn't make it tonight, obviously. So we'll give one of these to Mom, and maybe you could bring Brenton's too.
I'd be happy
that'd be
to
great.
give Brent's
Okay,
to his
thanks.
too.
Okay, Dr. Kenworthy, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, and good evening. I'll be brief tonight. I just wanted to take the opportunity for the last school committee meeting of the school year to update the school committee on where North Kingstown High School is in its process of preparing for our next NEASC visit, which is going to happen in September of 2013. And also, I wanted to share with you, and as is a requirement in preparing for the NEASC visit, with one of the documents that we have produced thus far in our self-study. So you should have three items that I prepared for your packet this evening. The first is just an overview of kind of where things are in the process. Again, in September of 2013, so 1 year out from when we start the next school year, we will be having our next accreditation visit from the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. Those accreditation visits happen on a 10-year cycle, and so the last visit would have taken place in 2003. And in between, schools are engaged in a process which NEASC lays out to essentially, immediately after the visit, respond to the findings of the last visit, and then as you get, as you move on in that 10-year cycle, to start preparing for the next visit. So this year, our preparations for the 2013 visit really heated up, and so we're in the middle of what's known as the self-study for NEASC. We have all of our faculty members are divided into one of 7 groups, and those groups correlate with the NEASC standards. And in 2011, NEASC did create new standards. So even the standards which we will be judged by, if you will, during the accreditation process are in some ways very different from the standards that were in place for our last visit in 2003. So we have, the faculty members divided up into those groups for the self-study process, and in each of those groups we tried to include as much as possible as we could find student representatives of students who will be around throughout the rest of the self-study and getting ready for the visit, and also parent and community members. So as we proceed throughout next school year, essentially what we'll be doing is producing actual documents that will be part of the self-study that we will send to NEASC to get ready for this visit in September of 2013. So the first document that needed to be created, you have a copy of, and it's what NEASC considers now to be, it's a school's core values and belief statement, and then included in there are what schools should identify as their 21st century expectations for student learning. And so we have been able to produce that to present to you this evening. And again, this was done through either getting feedback from the various committees. I also utilize the listserv a lot for not only the staff, but also we have a listserv that goes out every week to parents, students, and the community to get feedback throughout this process, and just engaging stakeholders in various meetings such as PTSO, School Improvement Team, and various staff meetings that we have. So what this document is essentially probably the language that you're more familiar with would be a mission statement, which many schools and districts still have. I know we're in discussions right now, and I think you have also later on in the agenda a presentation for the current district strategic plan. And so that strategic plan will include the more traditional mission and vision statement. But what NEASC is asking high schools to do now is to undertake a process which we did, reviewing what we had in place in light of what they consider to be 21st century expectations for student learning. And so the main elements that you're supposed to produce from that, a school is supposed to produce from that, are this core values and belief statement, and then these 21st century expectations for student learning, which are broken down into 3 main areas: academic, social, and civic. So I know you have a lot to get to this evening. I don't want to bore you with too many other details. I did want to provide this information for you to review, but certainly I could answer any other questions that you have about the process and our preparations.
Mr. Busgard and then Mr. Mudge.
I'm sorry, but I can't find a copy of the document.
It's in the correspondence. If you look in the correspondence section, that's where you'll find it. Yeah, it's at the very end. I know it took me a moment to figure out. No, it's not your fault, Dr. Kenworthy. It's just, so if you look at the very end, that's where you'll find the 3 documents that he's talking about.
Okay.
Mr. Mudge.
While he's looking, I'll ask a couple of questions here. What do we need financially to implement this program? And when are we going to need it? And is there a budget associated with the things that you have to do?
Sure. Obviously we're in difficult financial times, but I've been trying to make sure that our NEASC preparations are at the forefront of everything that we've budgeted for. So we do have line items that pertain to preparations for the NEASC visit. Right now, and I'd say for the majority of the next school year, a lot of the costs associated with this are paper and products that we'll produce. and also kind of on the professional development side, because one of the things that we, schools are encouraged to do, and we've been taking advantage of, is to send staff members out on visits to other schools. The whole NEAS process, visiting teams are made up of professionals, teachers and administrators that are in the business, so to speak. So, we've sent a good number of people out on visits so far. I went on a visit myself this past school year. We'll continue to do that throughout the next school year. The real costs associated with the visit, we're 1 year out from in the budget process. That'll be that 2013-14 school year and budget, and that's during the visit. We have to, all schools are required to put the visiting team up. We're a large high school. For us, that's probably going to be 20 to 25 people, and to supply them with the various supplies that they'll need for the visit. So we'll certainly stay aware of that and make sure we budget for that in this next cycle that comes through.
So hopefully by the first of the year, we'll have a budget for fiscal year
Right.
14 for the expenditures you would need. Can you say we're all set for this year?
Yep. Any of the expenses we'll need for this year have been included in the budget. Like I said, it's still somewhat minimal, as far as just supplies and things that we'll need for the self-study. And then on the professional development side, for substitutes to send people out on the visits.
So we'll have to some expenditures with regard to substitutes that have to fill in somebody else.
Right.
Okay. Another question. I know in 2003 when we did a review here, basically the CLAC was left off of the evaluation process. So my question would be, one, in general, how do you get the various folks involved in the process, and who are they, and do you have some sort of a magic list that you put together to show who's supporting this and make sure that we don't leave somebody out like CLAC
Sure.
that we was in 2003? And I think they also had a representative that was appointed to speak to the committee, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure, no, that's a good point. That's a group. I'll certainly make sure that they're on the list of groups that we keep engaged throughout the rest of our self-study. And then, during the actual visit itself in September of 2013, we can make sure that a representative from CLAC is on the list of people to talk to the NEAS committee.
I think that was a requirement. I'm not sure.
Sure, it probably is.
You might check that. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Dr. Kenworthy? Mr. Buskardin.
Dr. Kenworthy, when you go to when you have your group of people to go and visit, do you target school systems similar to ours, or are you trying to get information from all different sizes of districts and schools?
Yeah, it's certainly ideal to go and visit a school that's similar to us, in size and demographics. But we don't have the final say in that. I submit a list of people that we'd like to get out on the visit. So right now, that's kind of on the department chair, administrative team side, or each of these committees that we have for the self-study have committee co-chairs, and those are the people that we're certainly targeting to get out on the visits. And it's ideal if we visit a school that's similar to us, but ultimately we don't have the final say in that. So I'm just trying to myself this year, when I went out this year, I visited Tiverton High School. We had somebody who went out and was on a visit to Classical High School this year. And then there's also schools, you could be placed on a visit anywhere in New England, so Connecticut and Massachusetts are often some of the schools as well.
Thank you.
The question, when is the visit?
It's September of 2013.
We're just commenting on the feedback on the mic.
Yeah, that me?
That might,
Okay.
yeah. Once citizens' comment is over, we'll be all set.
So is there any other questions?
Only that I still can't find the documents, so it's something
Very end of the
to me or
In
It is
correspondence.
on the correspondence. So if you go all the way down to correspondence, you'll see,
Here they are here.
I don't have anything under correspondence. Ends at page 73 with.
are you under
Page
the board
127.
agenda? If you're not under the board agenda, you won't get correspondence. You have to be under the board agenda. Thank you.
That's okay. I'll ask you questions later.
Packet page.
I'd just like to commend Dr. Kenworthy for this work. He's been keeping me up to date with all the progress, and I just need to say, I've been through a couple of these as a high school administrator myself, and it is a mammoth process. There's so much in terms of planning that needs to go into this, and to get ready for that visit. It really is a 10-year cycle, and so they're in the heart of their work right now, preparing for that visit. And, with everything that educators need to do right now, new evaluation program, new curriculum coming our way, race to the top mandates, there's a lot going on. And our staff has done a great job with Dr. Kenworthy to take this on as well. It's never easy work. It's never fun. It's not the first thing that we would want to do, but it's important that we do it, and people have come into it with a really good attitude, and they're getting a great job done. I'm sure we're going to have an excellent visit.
I know that I've already been asked for information in March, so I know that you all are well on your way, so I hope everything goes well, and if you need anything else, feel free to come before us again. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I'm sure I'll be back to update you a few times next year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to citizens' comments. Tonight is a business meeting, so again, we have citizens' comments. It is at the beginning of the meeting. We do not have it before we take a vote on items. And I will be, as always, limiting citizens' comments to 3 minutes. This is the time for the citizens to speak, and so we will not be responding. So with that, there are 3 people on the list. The first is Richard August, and the second is, I think, Kimberly Wilson. So.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Did you say I have 2 minutes or 3?
3. No, the normal 3.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to compliment you, Madam Chairperson, for the way you tried to run last evening's meeting in a professional and efficient manner according to Robert's Rules of Order. I know you also tried to control the remarks from both members of this committee and members of the audience, which at times were somewhat out of line. There are 4 days left in order for this body to present a balanced budget for the fiscal year ending in 2013. So I'll be brief because you have a lot of work cut out for you this evening. I've attended the last 2 meetings of this committee. Permit me to share a couple of observations, hopefully without interruption from any of its members. It is unclear to me how about $420,000 of the arbitration award of $621,000 cannot be corroborated. The arbitrator did not come up with these numbers by himself. The quantification of the elements of the award had to have come from the administration. So why they cannot now be reconciled is somewhat unbelievable. It is also unbelievable to me how Mr. Mudge could argue for accepting the arbitration award without identifying how the $621,000 was going to be paid for. If memory serves, Mr. Mudge failed to attend a meeting earlier of this year of this body to which he has been twice elected, so he could speak at a town council meeting in favor of reducing the school department's budget request for next year. When Mr. Boscardin asked Mr. Mudge to tell the committee how the award was to be paid for, Mr. Mudge badgered the new director of administration regarding the size of the fund balance or surplus. Apparently, Mr. Mudge thinks it's wise to expend any remaining fund balance and worry about the consequences later. Mrs. King could not tell Mr. Mudge what the fund balance is because she doesn't know. And this is because the books for the current fiscal year haven't been closed, and she doesn't know how much, if any, of the fund balance may be needed to offset a deficit. Mr. Mudge had to resort to one of his perennial complaints about the Jamestown contract being unfair. Ironically, Mr. Mudge complained last evening that Jamestown does not pay a cent for the high school building that was designed to accommodate 300 of their students. It is ironic because Mr. Mudge has argued previously that the calculation of the tuition charged to Jamestown students includes a component for the retirement of the high school bonds. I'm a member of the town's Charter Revision Commission. I'd like to point out that the town charter does not provide for the consolidation of municipal and school district departments. In fact, the charter does not even provide for an IT director as a direct report to the town manager. When I asked the town council to include consideration of these points in its charge to this year's commission, the council said that this would have to wait for the 6-year review of the entire charter, which is to be done in 2014. So accordingly, it appears that any attempt at consolidating departments could be subject to a court challenge. At the June 14th meeting, someone read a quote from President Franklin D. Roosevelt about a living wage that drew applause and cheers from many in the audience. Permit me to conclude with a quotation from a letter FDR wrote to Luther C. Stewart, President of the National Federation of Federal Employees, on August 16, 1937. And I quote, "All government employees should realize that the process of collective bargaining, as usually understood, cannot be transplanted into the public service. It has its distinct and insurmountable limitations when applied to public personnel management. The very nature and purposes of government make it impossible for administrative officials to represent fully or to bind the employer in mutual discussions with government employee organizations. The employer is the whole people who speak by means of laws enacted by their representatives." And I distinctly suspect that that quote wouldn't draw too many cheers. Thank you.
May I respond, Madam Chairman?
This is citizens' comments.
Well, I think he was
No,
correcting the things of
this is
myself
citizens' comments.
that are certainly inaccurate, and he doesn't understand
Comments.
what I said.
No,
Okay? Well, thank you.
no.
I have a
Kim
clue,
Wilson,
Mr.
Kimberly Wilson.
Excuse me.
Good evening. I'm Kim Wilson, and this is Amanda Kirkutis, and we're teachers at Quinessa Elementary School. We are here tonight just to ask you to please replace the carpets this summer in the school. They're over 20, I was told they're over 20 years old, and they've been wet year after year. And I know that when we had the flood in Rhode Island, a couple years ago, my basement was wet. I had to replace my rug. Even though mold tests have been done from what we've been told, or air quality tests, in the Rhode Island Analytical report, it says, keep in mind that these tests and the inspection of the building is only one little portion of what they see, that you have to have visual examination and knowledge of water damage, past remediation, and water conditions, among other elements, is essential in decision-making for indoor air quality. We are there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. We're asking to replace these carpets for the health and safety of the children. Again, and we've spoken many times, I do have to say that the water is still coming in. It came from the roofs in mid-June. I have pictures here from the third grade class where the water is still coming in and soaking the carpets. We have at least 8 to 10 dehumidifiers running constantly. Water is collected in 25-gallon buckets. If you would like to see the pictures, I have them here. This cannot go on. Cords are draped over bubblers. The dehumidifiers are going into the kids' sinks. And I don't understand how this can keep happening, especially when I have at least 150 nurse slips that are signed by the nurse saying they have upper respiratory problems. And some of these parents contacted me over the summer and said their child is already feeling better, as well as other staff members. I'm not saying that it's, definitely a mold problem, or, I'm not 100% sure right now, because the tests that have been taken are only little samples. I went out and paid for my own test, and I had it on the carpet for 1 hour. I sent it to the lab, and it grew mold within 24 hours. The results came back saying that there is a moisture problem in the school and on the carpets. You have to remove the carpets, and if it's not done this summer, then we're going to go through an entire year. With the kids on the carpets, they're touching the carpets. They do their schoolwork in groups on the carpets. So if it's not decided immediately, I don't know what's going to happen in the fall. Because what's going to happen is some of these parents are getting very upset, taking their kids to have allergies, and they're being tested. They're being tested for mold right now. You can get tested for mold, a certain mold in your system, and it will tell you. So something has to be done. Again, if you'd like to see these pictures where the black spots on the books, buckets of water that are never, I don't understand why dehumidifiers is collecting the water, and then the water stays there in the buckets for the day. So, I don't get that, but
Madam Chair,
thank you.
can we hear from the superintendent on this issue, since we've already discussed this matter? I don't know if
We
Ms.
have the
Wilson is aware.
superintendent's report, so when we come to that, we'll let him comment on it at that time.
Well, let's not ask any questions.
It's next.
Also, there was an April report that said you had air quality problems.
Okay, this is citizens' comments.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
We haven't resolved that issue yet.
Yes, I am still waiting on the air quality. The carbon dioxide levels are they're elevated, and many of us have been getting headaches and dizziness, and that is one sign. I don't have any windows in my room, unfortunately, for any fresh air, so I'm hoping that gets settled as well.
Thank you. Jim McGuinn.
Jim McGuinn, 412 Chimney Rock. First of all, I was at the facilities meeting last week, and it was discussed, the carpets, the windows, the roof contractor, although the roof manufacturer, multinational manufacturer, although his own contractor had identified that the repairs were not under warranty in a prior invoice about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, has decided to warranty the roof. I think perhaps the Channel 6 report helped in that. So that should be fixed over the summer, and we should have a warranty on the roof. The next thing is getting that building so it's not a sick building anymore. There are people, teachers with dizziness, nosebleeds, kids going to the office. The windows don't work. The windows need to be fixed. It was identified at the facilities meeting that repairs can be made, but the windows right now, a janitor said, were dangerous. If you tried to open them, they could fall and they could hurt someone, even an adult. That needs to be done. Last night, the town council tried to vote on this. They did not have sufficient information to vote on it. They did not know where the $250,000 was going to come from, whether it was going to come from the $1.8 million bond or the $6.4 million bond. This needs to be, this process of approval with RIDE, the town council, the school committee, needs to be accelerated because time is, what have we got, 9 weeks left before school starts? There are some more ways to get this done. It can be done. It should be done before the school year starts. The other thing I'd like to say is the other thing that was done last night was the appropriation for the school, the additional $570,000 of state aid came through. So the town council added it to the fiscal year 13 budget, and it said that you're $600,000 short, so 570, you're within 30,000, unless I'm wrong.
You are wrong.
1 million.
Okay, well, it'd be nice to know exactly what the numbers are. And that gets to my final point. I ran a ask through an APRA for a universal chart of accounts line item detail back in September. That identified that there was, I believe, $320,000 negative expense at Davisville Elementary School, and $4 million have yet to be allocated.
3 minutes is expired. We're going to hold all
I
citizens to 3
have
minutes.
30 seconds and I can finish up.
Finish
This
up,
is
Mr.
fairly
McGuinn,
important.
right now.
It's only money. And I did it in February. I found $8.6 million. 1,479 line items were negative. Did it this month 4 times with 3 days left in the period. It shows that there's approximately $1.6 million of unexpensed, undesignated, unencumbered money left in the budget. The problem is, and I'll give this to Mrs. King, is that every time you run the report in Munis, getting a different original appropriation number, I'm getting a different revised appropriation number and a different balanced number, and I think it's something that certainly deserves her attention.
Thank you, Mr. McGuinn.
Phil, when you get a chance, that $1.6 million in your desk drawer, can you please turn it back into us? Thank you. What was that?
This is now Superintendent's report. Dr. Ajay.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to address, one of the items on the agenda tonight is the Quidnesset floor. We, as Mr. McGuinn pointed out, we did have a facility subcommittee meeting recently, and it is my hope that with some measures tonight that we can do the things we need to do for the windows. We also have plans, from what I understand, that the roof will be fixed mainly with warranty money over the summer, and whatever isn't handled with warranty money, I expect that we will use, district funds to cover the rest of that. As far as the carpet goes, I'm going to let Mrs. King talk a little bit about that. We certainly have a plan. We have a desire to get this done this summer. However, to get the funding for this, could run to approximately $250,000. And we're hoping to use, the bond that we're hoping to use is the $6.4 million bond, the bond that has just been approved this spring. Now, the reason that we feel we have some money in that and we have a way to do this is that that bond includes Quidnesset Elementary for similar issues. HVAC system, for instance, is part of it. And it also includes the Davisville roof, which is obviously a very similar issue. So we see this as a possibility, and we also see it because we know, and this was reported at our last school committee meeting 2 weeks ago, that the roof at Davisville came in significantly lower than we had budgeted for. So that was good news. So there is money available in that budget. The problem is there is a process of going about different approvals with the committee, with the town council, and the Department of Education and all, and some time that needs to be taken for approvals with, getting bids and doing things right. We need to check for the water table. We want to make sure that we're looking at issues of water possibly rising. That's been something that I've been led to believe is occurring, but we're not absolutely certain that that is the case. And obviously, to pull up a rug of that size, move all of the equipment out of the building to do it, and to replace it, and then to conduct air quality tests, so on and so forth, and get everything ready, is going to take an entire summer, or to be able to plan for an entire summer, so that you can get going with it right away. And what we're unsure about right now is we're just unsure that we're going to have the time to do that. To get these approvals, to get the bids and all that, we may be running late and running into a point where we wouldn't be able to be in school nearly on time. So I'm going to let Mrs. King talk a little bit more about those details.
I'm going to go back a little bit. What Dr. Ajay and I attempted to do a couple of weeks ago now is we solicited from certain vendors some quotes for replacement of that carpet with either vinyl tile, ceramic tile, possibly an epoxy finish or polished concrete. What we got back for quotes, now mind you, this was not a formal RFP. We were trying to expedite, to get some information to put in front of the facilities subcommittee. All we got back was some information on epoxy flooring. We presented that to the facilities subcommittee. Due to timing, one issue is that due to timing, we probably could not get that done also in this time frame. Two, the facilities subcommittee was not comfortable with using an epoxy finish. There are a lot of other issues. There are noise issues and this water table issue that needs to be addressed. The facilities subcommittee recommended that we look into a different product, which is what we are preparing to do. However, based on all of the approvals that we need to get approval from RIDE, and RIDE is going to require that we have a fully vetted RFP process, that if we have a direction in which the facilities subcommittee and the school committee want to look at, be it square carpeting tiles or vinyl tiling, that will be acceptable, but we have to make sure that it's a fully vetted process, that we have the best bid, and that we have addressed other issues, and that other issues would be this water table issue that needs to be looked at. We certainly do not want to spend a couple of $100,000 only to find that there's water that's going to be coming up from the water table, pushing up the tile, pushing up the carpeting, and causing more problems. So several things are slowing this down because we're already June 26th. We need town council, school committee approval, we need town council approval, most importantly, we need RIDE approval. And in order to get RIDE approval, you have to follow all of the steps that RIDE requires. Because this is not seen with all of the steps that we have taken as an emergency issue at this point. We have followed the RIDE rules. We have information from Commissioner Gist, from someone who works in her office, as well as from Jim Larissa at DLT, that there is not a mold issue. We have air quality testing. We've gone through that process. Therefore, this is not going to be considered an emergency issue at this point, so we have to follow the steps that we have to follow. With that being said, we are working with the facilities subcommittee to come up with a recommendation so that this can be done and provided to RIDE to get approval so that this can be done for the next school year, starting immediately after school closes. I think it's important that everybody understands that one issue that we will address this summer are the windows. I don't know how much that's going to cost. I don't know the details of that, but that is going to get addressed so that at least there will be better airflow. If there are safety issues, those will also be addressed. So we are looking into that issue as well. I think that's it.
If I can add to that, we're also planning on doing as aggressive and deep a cleaning of the carpets as we possibly can over the summer to make sure that we've addressed everything that we need to address there. You know, it is not perfect, and it would be our hope to take care of this this summer. But like I said, all of these particular issues are holding us up right now. Even if we could magically come up with the funding right away, I'm not sure that getting the bids and getting the project lined up at this point, you need a lot of lead time. For instance, the roof at Davisville, there were months of lead time, things done to get ready. So I'm worried that we wouldn't be able to get this done on time. So that's the plan as I have it right now, and we may talk a little bit more about that when this comes up as an agenda item.
Mrs. Avanzato.
Just want to express a certain frustration level, not with this administration, but with RIDE, because it may not be an emergency according to their regulations, but it's something we'd like to see addressed sooner rather than later. And I would think that this committee might send a letter putting a little bit of pressure on them, or just letting them know that we feel it should be addressed as soon as possible.
Well, it's not RIDE right now at this point because they have to have information presented to them, and in order to get that information, we need to choose a path, what kind of product we're putting down. We need to go out to RFP and get the proper bids and the information to present to RIDE. That takes a lot of time. Yeah. So then to put that in front of RIDE then, once we had that information, but again, we have to address any water table issues. That could take some time as well. So this really isn't RIDE. I don't want anyone to make it sound like I'm blaming RIDE, because I'm not. RIDE has steps that need to be followed. Once those steps are followed, they would accelerate something. The issue that we have in the schools is we have such a very, very short time frame in which to get anything done in the summer. And we could probably get this done if we didn't have this lingering water table issue that would be irresponsible for us not to address if there was, or at least determine if there is an issue before we start replacing with anything, because we could spend $200,000 and then we have water issues down the line, and I don't think that would be that's not something we would want to do.
One more question is
Yes.
the facilities subcommittee, I know they're all aware of all of these issues. I went to one of their meetings, we discussed it. I know several members of this committee expressed their concerns, as did Dr. Auger, about the situation in the carpet, and so on and so forth. I imagine that we'll be getting a recommendation from them as soon as they have an opportunity. Obviously, it's summer, and I don't know when their next meeting is. And
We actually have one that we're going to be scheduling for July 9th, and in the meantime, we will be working with a product. We're going to be reviewing a product that was actually recommended by that facility subcommittee. It's a product that is mold resistant, it's easy to clean, it will help address noise issues because it will not be on flat flooring, and it's a product that a couple of the members have used previously as well.
thank you.
Mr. Mudge, and then Mr. Buschgarden.
No, we need to do everything we can to try to mitigate this problem this year. And one of the things I think we need to do, because there are so many elements here, is we need somebody to coordinate this issue. And frankly, I think even though we have a facility committee that's looked into this, we need to get some engineering people in here immediately and turn this over to hygienists and so forth and so on instead of plan. You know, we can do a lot of different things. For example, we could get the town in right now, okay, and do a couple bore samples in the floor. I mean, those are parallel things that we can do. It's a matter of putting this plan of action and milestones together and working things in parallel, not in series. And as much as the facilities committee there is to make recommendations, we need some engineering inputs. We need them fast. And I would submit that's the way we should be doing this, is hire whatever type of expert we need to come in and start to coordinate these things and put a plan of action and milestones together. And we could be going to RIDE and telling them what we're going to do. We could be saying that we want to replace this if the widgets hit. You know, it's just a stroke of the pen for them to say it's under the bond. It's no more cost for them. So that element can be worked in parallel. And we could also go to the town council if we had to and say, these are the things we're doing. If RIDE doesn't give us the money, will you give us the money? So we shouldn't be in peril with these tasks. We need to put these things together and make it happen. And I think we can only do this if we get the right person in charge. There's nothing against you. I'm talking about engineering people to do this evaluation. Get dedicated people in now.
Mr. Mudge, I'm actually going to be meeting, just so you know, I'm going to be meeting with some people this week. Actually, the architect that is helping Mr. Partridge, who was at one of our facility subcommittee meetings. I'm going to be meeting with him this week so that he can begin to let us know what steps we need to take to address if there is a water table issue, as well as some things we might need to do on the windows. So we are working this.
I understand that, but I see Mr. Archer, he's an architect.
Right.
That doesn't mean he's an expert in the rugs and everything else, and that he could be putting a plan together to say, we need this expert, that expert, come in and do that. Okay, we need the people in here that can implement these things. And the time is just lagging on us, and somehow we've got to expedite this thing. And the way to do that is, if he's a coordinator, fine, but get these folks in here, get these things going. Put a plan of action and milestones together.
Didn't we receive correspondence today from Mr. Embry? I mean, basically telling us that we needed that we were going to need to follow the RIDE requirements before we could look at any.
If we use the funding for the bond, we need to follow the RIDE requirements. You know, we're going to be pursuing this as fast as we can. There are lots of people to be consulted with, lots of a couple of groups to get approvals from. If we find an opportunity to get this done this summer, we're going to take it. we're just expressing our concern that, because of the number of steps involved, we're not necessarily hopeful that it's going to work out that way.
Mr. Busgarden.
Is there a way for us to, not necessarily circumvent RIDE, but just kind of have a workaround where we can use some of our unfunded balance and pay for it up front, and then when we get their okay, replenish it with that? I mean, I appreciate the fact that there's rules and regulations and checks and balances, but sometimes it just gets cumbersome, and I think this is one of those times. I just like to know if there's any way we can expedite this and be creative, and not necessarily breaking rules, but just being creative and finding ways to work around some of the hurdles that have been established for us.
Later on in the evening, we're going to be talking about, our budget conditions and fund balance and all of that, and we're not necessarily in a position where, that kind of money is easily had out of the fund balance. And we'll go into some detail about that. I mean, if it is the committee's wish to do that, I suppose it can be done, but we still have issues around, taking care of the water table issue, if there is one, and part of that is a time-consuming, even the best of all possible worlds, where we get the foremost expert in here tomorrow morning. That may take time to look into that issue, make sure it is what it is, and address it before you can start laying down a carpet. So, like I said, we'll do the best we can with the resources that we have. And it's certainly my hope, and that's what I've expressed to the community, that we can get it done this summer. It's just that the more we are learning about this, the more people we're consulting and trying to get help from, the more it seems like the more realistic thing is that we would be beginning now and looking at a complete fix of all issues for next summer.
What resources do you need, Dr. O'Shea? You say all available.
Well, we need the information, Mr. Mudge. We need the information on the water table specifically.
So we need to do an engineering type of thing and get that done quickly,
yeah,
right?
and we have engineering-type people that we're consulting with through the facilities subcommittee.
Well, so, it's not, no, I'm not, what I'm suggesting is, they've made a recommendation. We need to get the engineers and the hygienist and or whatever in, air analysts, and to start to do the work here. We need to get people, with the boots on, doing the study. Okay, and we can do everything else. And to answer Mr. Busgarden, we have that
air analyst in the building.
We can go back to the town council and ask them for the money. Okay?
And Mr. Welch, and then Mrs. Benson.
We're hamstrung until we get this engineering analysis done.
Mr. Welch, and then Mrs. Benson.
John, to answer your question about spending the money up front, the first thing is that anytime you spend over $500,000 on a school building, whether RIDE is participating or not, they have to give their approval. So under $500,000, you don't have to go to RIDE. The situation that Bill brought up, I think, is an excellent point. Doing some of the site work ahead of time to have it ready, I definitely agree with Bill on that, and the town has the people to do that. I don't think we have to go outside of that to get an outside contractor to do that. And I think that we can get that orchestrated because Phil Bergeron attends the facilities meetings, and they've always, as far as I'm concerned, the last 4 years, they've been extremely cooperative with us, working hand in hand, us with them, and vice versa. So I would say that, yes, Bill, your point is well taken, and I would definitely support it.
We need to turn the faucet on, right?
Say again?
We need to turn the faucet on.
Yeah, well, if we can do as much as we can ahead of time, it certainly isn't going to hurt, and using town forces to do it saves us money.
Could we go to the town council and ask for them to expedite this or something, if that's the thing?
Well, I think why don't we wait until we know what we're going to ask them to expedite? That would be my suggestion, but by all means, everyone's free to attend the meeting on July 9th.
And I think that the people that I know that the people that are there certainly are qualified to handle the situation and make the proper recommendation.
The thing that bothers me, Dick, we've got to wait until July 9th, and that's...
We've got to live with their schedules, too.
Well, I understand, but I guess what I'm saying is maybe there's some people we can bring in now and pay if we have to, and get this thing, the analysis underway. That's what I'm saying.
Mrs. Benson?
With your permission, and in citizens' comments, I would just like for a moment to change the tone of the meeting.
Well, we're talking about right now about the carpeting at Quinnesset. And so if you have a comment or a question that you'd like to ask on that, you may, but we're not going to another subject right now.
Okay, well, I do have a comment to make, and I was going to make that. First, I'd like to congratulate you, Ms. King, on the speedy work for the time you've been here in expediting that problem. That has been a lingering problem. And I have a heart attack, Mr. Welch, I agree with you. We do need to expedite, and there's no way we can keep from going around RIDE. They are the governing educational body of our state. And I would like to see that problem remediated before school starts. And it's one of those things, because dealing with water tables, I live in a district where you got to have your insurance and send it to DEM, have one for the insurance company and everything where the water table. So those things are, I hate to personalize it, but I understand. And thank you so much for the speedy work that you have done on that. Now the ball is in our court. The Facilities Committee is a volunteer committee. They might have engineers, they might have everything, but they have their own businesses and they have their own job to look out for. So I'll have to agree. We need to see if we can get some of these engineers in here. If they have to come out of Connecticut, Massachusetts, I see them on the road all the time, and get this problem remediated. Thank you. And I would like to beg you, I would humbly beg you to let me make an announcement when we get through talking about this.
Mrs. Avanzato?
Just a quick question. Mr. Bergeron is an engineer, is he not?
Yes.
And he's been working with the Facilities Committee, and he's up to speed on this project. He was at the last meeting that I attended. So I would concur, with discussing it with him and seeing what the town is willing to do, where we don't have to pay for an outside engineer to come in and do it. And we will move forward with as much speed as the administration can do. I know they will. I mean, I realize in the past we've tried to get RIDE to hurry up on other projects. It didn't work. Their regulations are like yay thick and somewhat absurd in a lot of ways, but what are you going to do?
And Mr. Bergeron has been working with us. He's been very good. He's been in my office a couple of times, and we've discussed this issue and what we need to do moving forward. So he has been very cooperative with us.
Well, perhaps one of the things this committee should do is that we do not have another meeting until August 14th, because just how August bears out, that the second Tuesday isn't until the 14th. So it may be that this committee would should submit just times that you are free during the schedule, that if we need to have a meeting, some sort, even if it would be just a short meeting to make some quick decisions, that Lorene can get in contact with us. So we can send out an email after the meeting tonight, and then if everybody could give a briefly just when you are available, so that if something needs to be scheduled. At this point, I know of nothing that we need to schedule, but at the same time, it would be helpful to know who is around in town and who is not. Anything else, Dr. Roget?
No. I do have one question. What is the current plan of action and milestones based on what we know today? The things we have to do, when we might get them done, so that we know what that time table is that we're working with?
I'm going to be meeting with people this week, Mr. Mudge, to try to determine the first step and what the next steps need to be. I know that Mr. Bergeron was out of town, and I don't know if he's back yet. I know he wasn't back last night. But I am going to be meeting with people this week so that we can determine what the next steps are on the water table issue. That's the first step. So that will be relatively quickly. And I am in contact with Mr. Grundy from the Facilities Subcommittee often. He's also been very helpful, as has Mr. Plimpton, in any issues that we might need assistance with. So I'm working on that now in all of our spare time.
You think the school committee should send a little note to the town council, ask them if they could help expedite this thing through their civil engineering department?
I don't think so, because I think anything that we need, Mr. Bergeron will help us with. There's been no slowdown there at all.
All right, so let's move into the consent agenda. Are there items that people would like to
Madam
exempt?
Chair, did you completely ignore the fact that
No, I did not ignore you, Mrs. Benson, but unless you have something specific that you want to comment on the agenda when we get to that item, if you want to comment on that particular item on the agenda, that is fine. But we're now out of the superintendent's report, and we are into the consent agenda. So if there's something you would like to exempt, you may.
This is not the consent agenda.
Then I'm going to say, no, at this time, you cannot make a statement.
Let the record report, let the minutes reflect.
Let the minutes reflect that I'm only allowing you to speak on the agenda. Yes, that is correct.
Citizens
So,
who gave 60 years of service.
all right, Mrs. Benson,
Let the minutes reflect.
Yeah, Mrs.
that
Benson,
the
I have said to
chairman
you.
refused-
Yes, I have. You have to speak on the agenda. So we are now at the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to exempt?
Make a motion to approve the
Oh,
consent agenda.
I'm sorry, I would like to exempt a couple items, please.
What would you like to exempt?
I'm going to start backwards here. On 9, on page 3.
Is this C9?
Yep. Uh, 8,
C8?
7. What's these?
I was going to say, you know,
2.
C8 is just a transfer.
Yeah, I understand. 5, actually 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. These are some questions, and for the minutes.
I was going to say, you couldn't get your questions answered ahead of time, Mr. Mudge.
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
And item, the financial report, the monthly update, B. B1. Thank you.
There has been a motion on the floor to approve all the minutes.
Well,
So,
excuse me, I've already exempted these items.
yes, but the motion came before you exempted the items. There was a motion on the floor and a second. So I'm going to take the motion on the floor in the second, and then
No.
if your motion fails, then we can talk about your exemptions.
Yeah.
Lorene, roll call vote.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes?
Mel Boyd Benson.
Yes.
John Biscardin.
No.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
No.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2. Thank you.
That's just shameful.
All right, so that brings us to unfinished business. Okay. All right, so we're going to come to the 2011-2012 school budget. Mary, Mrs. King, do you want to?
Yes, what is in your package is to get your approval so that we're really adjusting our FY12 budget to reflect the $266,624,000 reduction in town appropriation that was issued by Judge Stern back at the end of May, I guess it was. So what you have is a summary in front of you that shows the original appropriation of $58,092,043, and the adjustments that need to be made totaling $266,624 to bring the appropriation down to the approved $57,825. I'm sorry, $57,825,419. And the subsequent pages are the details on where those adjustments and budget transfers would be.
I'll second the motion. I'll make a motion that we approve that budget.
Is motion on the floor to approve the budget transfers. Is there a second?
Not the transfers right now. I need to talk, unless you want to talk about it first. I agree with the reduction to 57,825, but I'd like to talk about the
So what is your
transfers.
motion exactly, Mr. Mudge?
To agree to the
To
reduction.
approve the budget adjustments as presented?
To the agenda item.
To approve the 57,825 spending authority, but not necessarily the adjustments at this time. So I have some questions that I'd like to ask.
Could those be done off committee?
If there's a second, please move.
Okay, is there a second to your motion?
I second.
All right, I just want to make sure I understand what your motion is, just to approve this is the bottom line.
Yes,
All right,
and then take a second vote on the transfers.
It's a different motion.
okay, got it.
Can we have one motion at a time?
Yeah, that's what he said. He does have one motion at a time. So this is a motion to approve that our bottom line is $57,825, $825,419, sorry. So, comments. Mr. Welch?
Mrs. King,
Yes.
does that now end the conversation with the town as it relates to the deficit?
That is my understanding for FY12, yes.
And have they been paying the bills as they're supposed to pay?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mudge.
Yeah, I'd like to refer back to the budget page, packet page 29 and packet page 31.
Are you talking about the agenda tonight, or are you talking about the budget book?
I'm talking about the budget submittal for May 31st, 2012. I think that was in the minutes, okay? I'm confused with some of the numbers here that were presented, and there may be some conflicts here. So if you look at those two pages, you will see that
Point of order.
the council also had
Is
an
your point of
opportunity
order?
to...
Mr. Cerisi?
Madam Chair, this discussion is out of order. The motion on the floor is to approve this bottom line budget number that's been recommended by the Director of Administration.
I have
That's
some
what the
questions
motion is.
about that.
The discussion is not revision of history from the budget from 2 months ago. It's on the motion.
But you hadn't let me finish,
It's
Mr.
on the
Cerisi.
motion. The agenda topic in the motion is on the recommended number presented by the administration.
Okay, I understand what you're
Could
saying.
we please keep the discussion on
Madam
track,
Chair.
please?
Mr. Mudge, what is your discussion on the bottom line?
Well, if you were to go to the last
We don't have
payroll-
our pages laid out like you do.
Well,
So
I'm
it's a little
sorry.
bit difficult when you give a page number.
What
We all
else can I
have this
give you?
online, so
What-
it's not a page number that we go to.
Well, what
So
else
we don't
can-
know what you're referring
Okay,
to.
then-
That's just why I'm bringing it up, that
What-
there is no reference when you do that. We have no idea where you are.
Well, I'm sorry, I find this more convenient using the paper document, but I'll go
Well,
through
it
it
just means that
anyway.
nobody else knows where you are.
Well, I object to that because I'm not required to use a computer. I can use paperwork. So to kind
Okay,
of shun me...
but we're talking
okay,
about numbers, Mr.
okay,
Mudge, so that's why I'm saying,
okay.
what's your
May I-
question?
May I finish, please?
Yes, but make it relevant to the motion in the bottom
Yes.
line.
In this packet, page 31, I would like to point out that the budget shows, okay, for May 21st, May 31st, a budget of $58,092,043, which would be correct. That's what we're adjusting, okay? We understand that?
Yes, so are you having
Okay.
any disagreement with the change?
If you go to the preceding page, the revised budget for May 31st, okay, as part of this, revised budget was $57,825,419. So that's already happened. So we did that, okay, and this is last week, okay? However, if you look at this page, part of this budget, you'll see the numbers don't add up. Because in the $58,092,000, it shows we're getting $10,364,000. And that's not the case. Okay? And if you further look at, there's a June budget number in here that was offered. Okay?
Mr. Mudge, do you have a question, or?
Well, yeah, the numbers don't add up in terms of what or how we got to the $57,825,000.
Madam Chair, please call the question.
Also, I believe the town council.
Do I have a second to call the
bring
question?
it to shortchange this, ladies and gentlemen.
All right,
Okay,
so we
by
have
480
calling of the question and a second.
486.
Could we take a roll
I haven't
call
given
vote,
a
please?
floor yet. The town council shortchanged us $486,000.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
You know, I provided these
William
handouts
Mudge.
with you to show you this.
We're asking him to call the question, Mr.
Call the
Mudge.
question. Yes or no?
No.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No.
Passes
You
5-2.
All
On the
right, so
motion,
call the question.
this is on the motion to approve the 57,825,419 spending authority, but not the adjustments at this time. Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
No?
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
It's your motion.
Richard Welsh.
Okay.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Smart ass.
Melvoin Benson.
Oh, my God.
Call my name.
Yes.
Yes.
John Biscarden.
Yes.
Motion passes to 6-1.
All right, so now we have the town appropriation at $57,825,419. Mr. Cerisi.
Madam Chair, motion to approve the transfers as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Mudge.
Transfers are on what page?
They're right in the page in the back there, Mr. Mudge. You have, there's the summary sheet on top, and then in the back,
That
it
on-
actually says packet page 48.
Oh, I had 129 for some reason. Okay? You sure?
I'm going to,
48? Because, see, I do have,
What does he do? Yes. No, it's this one.
that was 83. 83.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair,
yes.
I'd like to ask a question while we're waiting for Mr. Mudge.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Mrs. King or Dr. Auger, was there any effort at all by Mr. Mudge to go over this information prior to this meeting with either of you?
No.
Thank you. I make a motion, we move.
I put this on the agenda.
Second.
I submitted documents.
What is your new motion? Because we have a motion on the
Motion to
table.
call the question.
Oh, motion to call the question. Okay, thank you. All right, Lorraine, can we take a roll call vote?
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
William Mudge.
No. No
Richard
discussion.
Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No discussion.
Don Biscarden.
Please
Yes.
vote.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Okay, this is on the motion to approve the transfers as submitted. Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
No.
Don Biscarden.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
No.
Motion passes 5-2.
All right, we're going to, with the committee's permission, we're going to jump back to recognitions because
call
based
you.
on our vote on the consent agenda, Dr. Auger would like to congratulate Patty Pizzullo.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment. You know, one of the things that we just approved in the consent agenda is the approval of Dr. Patty Pizzullo as our new pupil personnel director. Dr. Pizzullo is a veteran special education leader, and she is currently, or has been currently, the assistant director for pupil personnel, and she's also been at various times the interim director of pupil personnel in our district as well. She served in Narragansett. She has 2 doctorates and has worked at the teaching graduate students and has worked with preschool students and has worked with every student just about in between. We cannot ask for a more veteran and experienced and competent, outstanding leader than Patty Pizzullo, and I am very pleased to have her in our district. So congratulations, Dr. Pizzullo.
Patty, come on up so we can shake your hand.
Come on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Since we are currently on recognitions, Mrs. Vincent, I know that I wasn't aware of what you wanted to recognize before, but go ahead and state what you wanted to recognize.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Jim Baker?
Yeah. I don't know how to do it with getting the recognition now.
It's not necessarily a recognition. It's something you wanted to bring up, but this would be the appropriate time to do it, is what I'm saying.
Well, I wanted to announce to, and I'm doing this under distress, but I'm distress. But I'm doing this for the betterment of the school, Mrs. Page, and not for your wishes. I would like to recognize, and all of you here, to recognize a gentleman who has given 60 years of his time to the North Kingstown School Department. This man, there's not a child, an adult sitting here that lived in this town didn't come in contact with this gentleman. You never went to a high school basketball game that he wasn't refereeing free of charge. That was before stipend days. You never went anywhere that was related to the schools that Mr. Jimmy Baker wasn't there. And you know, I hate I have to do it under these circumstances because people have given a lot. They've given a lot. And that gentleman has given his life to this town and the educational system. And to not to be able, have to get okay from someone to mention him, we wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for people like Jim Baker. Because no matter what you get, there has to be a foundation. And let's not forget the cornerstones that brought us where we are. And these people, he worked hard. One of the original bus drivers, one of the original truant officers. Everything that meant for the betterment of this town, he was there. And he never faltered one bit. He was truant officer. Before it was a paid position, he did it on his lunch time when he had a break at the town garage. Then when it was a paid position, Mrs. Page, I don't think he had to call a policeman one time to go to anyone's house. Because whomever the child was, the mother or the father had come in contact with Mr. James Baker. So I would like to ask, with your permission, if the school committee secretary could send a letter of appreciation to Mrs. Carmen Baker and family for what she as a wife sacrificed for her husband to do in this time. Does that meet your approval?
I'll second that motion.
Why don't we send a condolence card?
I'll send
A
it.
card? You heard me say, with your permission, a letter.
Can I follow up? I'd like to make a motion we do that. I was going to speak about this last night.
This
and
isn't
I
for a
didn't.
motion. We don't have this on the agenda.
I understand
You
it. but
can't
I'd like
make
to
a motion.
I'd like to comment on
All
Mr.
right.
Baker, too, who
No,
I knew.
I
for-
appreciate,
see you
I
at the
can
close of the
appreciate the
meeting.
sentiment. Mrs. Benson, I received a note that she wanted to say something. I thank you for saying something. It is now time to
I
move
would
on, but
like to
we're
say
not going
something
to make a
myself in
motion.
recognition of Mr. Baker, please.
Madam Chair.
No, we're moving on.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I give a little latitude.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I respectfully ask that we get back to the agenda, and I would
Yes.
think it would be most appropriate if you give Mr. Mudge and Mrs. Benson the floor, point of privilege at the end of tonight's meeting
We
to
are
talk
not
about this,
granted that, Mr. Parisi.
as long as they would like to.
Here's a
So
guy
let's get
that's
back to
done-
the agenda, please.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to the agenda. I'm not
That's how
going to
you-
start giving
that's how
point
you
of
treat
privileges
that.
either.
Would you see me?
Okay, so we're back to the agenda.
It's shameful. Ruin this thing
We are
for this
back to
man.
the agenda.
Funny, isn't it, Cerisi?
All
Everything's
right.
funny to you.
We're now at 2012-2013 school budget. All right.
Please.
We need to take a recess and go into executive session. So do I have a motion to take a recess?
Time out. I make a motion. I call the, I am, excuse me.
I have a motion and a second. A motion by Mr.
I am
Cerisi
calling that
and
we
a
follow
second
the
by
agenda.
Mr. Welch.
I am, point of order.
This is following the
No, it
agenda.
is not Robert's Rules of Order, Madam Counsel.
Hey,
I
all
am
in
calling that we
favor,
follow
say
the-
aye. Aye.
All we
All those
follow
opposed?
the.
You know, Mr. Welch, we have to go into executive
You
session to
have
do,
to
to talk
by
about
Robert's
some things.
rules, accept
Yes.
my
We have to
intervention.
follow this to do
No,
this in executive
you-
session. All right. We are back in session. From executive session, we had to take a break to talk about legal advice to discuss pending litigation. So that brings us to the 2012-2013 budget.
Ms. Page, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Yes, Mr. Biscardi.
I'd like to make a motion to revisit a vote at last night's meeting that approved a 1% salary increase instead of accepting the suggestion of the arbitrator of a 0% increase to the remaining ESP employees, which was number 8, item B, under Roman numeral 4, unfinished business.
That's the number it was from last night's agenda.
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Busgarden has made a motion. Is there a second on the motion?
Could you clarify the motion, please? You're changing values or numbers or something? I didn't understand that.
No. A motion to revisit the vote that was taken last night at last night's meeting that approved a 1% salary increase for the remaining ESP.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll second it.
You wasn't in the executive.
Doesn't matter. I don't have to be in
Has
second.
nothing to do with executive session. That was just
Executive session.
Oh, we're breaking the rules.
No, that's fine.
No, we're not breaking any rules. We went out to talk about pending litigation. Now we are back on the 2012-2013. Mr. Busgarden is asking to revisit a vote that we took last night. Mr. Busgarden voted in the affirmative last night, so therefore he can look to revisit the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Page. After reflecting on the events of last evening's meeting regarding ESP negotiations, I'm glad we were able to have further discussion on this matter, because the way I see it, the school committee has a responsibility of giving the children of the district the best possible education that we can with the funds we have available. If we do our job well, we provide those children the best opportunity for success. I believe this is our most important task as parents, adults, and school committee members, to give our students, your children, our children, the best possible opportunity to succeed. To let our decisions stand from last night, I feel we haven't done our job. The school budget, like any budget, is a zero-sum proposition. By that I mean there are finite funds available, and when those finite funds benefit one area, another area suffers. The raise that I voted for takes dollars away from programs that directly impact the students' opportunity for success. It's this reason I respectfully ask my fellow committee members that voted to approve the raise to reconsider their vote and follow the recommendation outlined in the arbitrator's report, which is a 0% increase. Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Busgarden has put a motion on the table. Is there a second?
It was a second.
Bill Mudge seconded that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I missed that.
Well, I seconded the discussion. Now raise the discussion, so now he's got an amendment.
All right,
he's
so
making.
I'll second Mr. Busgarden's motion, just to be on the safe side. That we're having a discussion as to whether Mr. Mudge can second it or not. I think he can,
Yes, it
since he
doesn't-
wasn't here.
That's
He
fine.
wasn't here
But-
at that point of last night, so
that
that would
gives
be
me a
fine.
chance to
Yes,
second it
yes,
also.
he could second it,
Okay,
yeah.
that's all I
That's
wanted to know.
that's no problem. All right, so we have a motion on the table and a second. Discussion.
May I ask, what does this have to do with the entire contract then? And in terms of affecting the current issue with the janitorial staff and all that good stuff, you know, that it's been voted to go out?
Yes.
What is the impact on that?
$68,000 is the financial impact. The 1% increase represented, I believe, $67,491. I could be wrong. It's almost $68,000. It was a 1% salary increase for the remaining members of the ESP, not the ones affected, not the ESP members affected by the.
So this doesn't have anything to do with the decisions last night?
You'll know, it has everything to do with it. That's-
To help Mr. Busgarden, it would impact by 60 $63,984, and then there's a food service component aligned with this too for another $3,477.
67,461.
$67,461. Thank you.
Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I'm understanding correctly, based on the action the committee took last night and the votes the committee took last night, we still have a budget deficit, or we actually created a budget deficit of $211,000, and we need to make up that $211,000. And as Mr. Boscaden's motion outlines, part of making up that $211,000 would be approximately, this action, should the committee approve it, would make up $70,000 of that $211,000 deficit. That's what I'm understanding.
60,
Yeah.
yeah, roughly 67,000, yeah.
Thank you. The only question I have is this sheet with the options that
Yes.
has been provided with as far as offsets to account for the $211,000 deficit. The second set of potential offsets, I'm just a little bit,
We're going to
Yeah,
go over that.
okay, I'm a little bit confused by that area there.
It's a little misleading. What you would be looking at would be the first two items on the second list, and obviously that would allow you to do less of what's on the list in total. Particularly, one of the items that we would be looking to do if that weren't to happen would be the reduction of a maintenance worker, and that's something we would prefer not to have to do. The list is a little misleading, but it basically represents the kinds of things that would need to be done. If we do those two, we could do less of the others.
Thank you, Dr. Roger.
Mrs. Avanzato.
I believe that was sent down.
Yeah, it was passed down.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. Here you go.
I would ask Dr. Auger and Mrs. King what the impact of,
This was an executive session. That's where you needed to come to.
the impact of reducing a maintenance worker and what the administration's position is on that and how it would impact the district. And if you have any concerns around that.
I'm going to ask Mrs. King to talk about that.
The maintenance crew has had 2 retirees over the past year that were not replaced. And currently, they're trying to fill that time with some temps and some overtime. And you know that our facilities are in disrepair, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that group does a lot of work. We have, an HVAC team on board. We have a plumber that does a lot of work, and I would hope that we would not have to eliminate this position because it would be difficult for us to continue to maintain our buildings.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to know.
I'm sorry. Where are we in the discussion? I was sidetracked, and so, Mrs. Avanzato, did you get your question answered?
I did, I was just asking about the offset that was on this list of reduction of a maintenance worker.
Okay.
And that's really not optimal according to...
We have a motion on the table about the salary increases, and so that's, make sure that we stay within that, and then we can talk about we can go back to Dr. Auger and Mrs. King about the rest of the recommendations, so.
An offset situation, we have to discuss it in context.
Right.
Are we
Mr.
talking about
Mudge.
this fiscal 12 or 13 budget here?
Fiscal 12, well, fiscal 13, I'm sorry. Fiscal 13. Yes, Mr. Welch.
I'd just like to say that the motion that Mr. Boscaden made amounts to a full-time teacher with benefits. So when you're thinking about this and how it affects education and the cuts that we've made in staffing for education, it's a full-time teacher.
Could
Mr. Mudge.
Does this alleviate any problems with outsourcing custodians at all?
No.
We would still go ahead with the outsourcing.
The outsourcing is a much more significant component, $400,000 in the first year, $600 in out years.
It is what we need to get to, we still are not $211,000.
A little over $200,000 before we make budget right now.
Mr. Cerisi.
I just want to, I was the one who had made the motion last night to approve a 1% pay increase and rather than the arbitrator's decision of 0%, or the arbitrator's recommendation of 0%. So I made that motion last night, and I supported that motion last night, and my thinking was, again, to try to find a level of fairness and balance, as difficult as it is to do with so many different contracts in the district, both bargaining unit contracts and individual administrator contracts. Again, with the teacher's contract, it was a 3-year deal. It was 0% the first year, 1% the second, and 1% the third. Our administrative contracts, the individual ones, have been 1%. I know when we originally went into negotiations, we were looking at 1% here, and we originally budgeted for that. But I can certainly understand my colleague, Mr. Biscardin's concerns and sentiments on this. And I really, I don't know where I'll stand on this reconsideration, but I certainly appreciate him bringing it up for discussion and consideration, and I'd just like to continue this discussion here with the sentiments of my colleagues. I'm more of the mind of thinking of looking in other areas of offsets for that $211,000. Obviously, I'd like them to be in non-educational and non-student facing areas, as difficult as that is at this time, because we've pretty much have plucked the fruit from every area we can conceivably look at. So, but I don't have any questions. I just kind of wanted to share the thoughts that I was having on this item right now.
Mrs. Avanzato.
Just a refresher, in the last ESP contract, I'm trying to recall, I know we kept administrators to 0% like multiple years in a row, like 2 or 3 years, and then I think we gave 1, and then teachers took 0, 1, 1. I don't know if we did that with ESP, I don't recall.
You mean in the last contract?
At all, yeah, recently in the last few years.
Don't think there was a 0. I believe it was, I don't remember what it was.
Okay, I didn't think we did, but I wasn't sure. Part of that reasoning was obviously that we're talking about employees that are not the highest paid employees in the district.
Mrs. Benson.
The way I feel, if you had 1%, we're going to give it back to 0, which is nothing. That's a pretty good gesture. Number 2, I think we've been in court enough. Nobody's profiting but the attorneys. And professional development, I have always maintained that it's going to hurt, but we got people that's within our teaching staff are retirees that have skills in these things that would be glad to come in and to help a young teacher. And to add back maintenance workers.
We're not discussing that right now, Mrs. Benson. We're only discussing the 1%. Well, that's the motion that Mr. Biscardin has put on, so that's what we're discussing.
Okay. Well, I'll speak only to Mr. Biscardin's motion. And thank you for making that motion. And all I can say is, you went through a brave gesture, and I support it.
Mr. Mudge.
I'm
little unclear on what our objective is here. Before I vote on this, I'd like to understand this.
We need to balance the budget.
Understand, so that's what I understood is we had a $1.6 million budget deficit coming into tonight.
We're talking about next year, Mr. Budd.
That's what I'm talking about, fiscal year 13 budget. In other words, what the council actually did, by the way, if you look at the page in the deficit that I submitted last week, okay, it outlines where we went from 60 million to the budget we had, 58,737 we sent to the council, down to the $243,000, and what actions it took to get there. It showed all the
Mr.
different
Mudge, do you
actions.
have the sheet in front of you, SBJB final, down at the bottom left-hand corner?
Yes.
Right, that's where we are for tonight.
but
And
here-
the
but
top
here's my-
number says 211,483.
But
And that's where we are right now, and that's what we need to budget.
But can we speak in some numbers, please, because
I just did, $211,483. That's where we are tonight. That's what we have to figure out as to how we're getting there.
I
It's
understand,
at the
but
very top of the page on the
but-
right-hand side.
I see that, thank you, okay? But my point is, I'm trying to work now, as I understand it, with the council awarding us monies, okay, for next year, roughly the 600,000 or 570, we would be at, right now, a $1 million deficit. $1 million deficit.
No, we're not, Mr. Mudge. And, you know, part of this comes down to, if you come into the executive session that we had
It's a public session, I have a right to ask these questions.
Yes, and if you came into the executive session and did your due diligence,
Yeah.
you would know where we were. And if you stayed here at the meeting yesterday, you would understand
If
that.
you would listen
You
to
would
what I have to
know where
offer,
we were.
you might understand something, and it's in our meeting here. We have a $1 million deficit to make up the deficit that we had with the town council. That's a fact. It's right here. So the question is, we've gotten $600,000 roughly back from the council last night. We have to make up the budget that we submitted to the town council of $58,737,000, the budget we submitted to the council in February.
Madam Chair?
We are $1 million
Yes, Mr. Welch.
short. We are $1 million. We are $1 million.
Yes, what is your point of order, Mr. Welch?
Please call the question.
Please refer to the
I have a
enclosure
second on
of
calling the question.
tonight's minutes. Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Lorraine, can we have a roll call vote?
How can we?
Richard Welsh,
Yes.
Linda Avanzado,
Yes.
Melvoin Benson,
Yes.
John Biscarden,
Pay $10
Yes.
before I take one.
Larry Cerisi,
How many of you give
William
us
Mudge.
$10 for $1?
I have insufficient information to deal with this situation
Kimberly
and
Page.
make a good
Yes.
decision.
You make sure you please read back the motion.
This is on Mr. Biscarden's motion to revisit the motion from last night to increase
Just this right here.
salaries, a 1% increase for the remaining members of the ESP. Richard Welsh.
I just need some clarification. It's just, the motion is just to revisit it,
Revisit.
period, right?
And then you're going to
It
have
isn't-
to...
It isn't
Then we have to do the
Right, then you have to have
Right,
another
I just-
motion.
They're just
Yes.
revisiting.
Linda Avanzado,
Yes.
Melvoin Benson,
Yes, for revisiting purposes. I thought we were making the motion to settle on the 1%. Somewhere the train got
All
on the
right,
wrong
that was
track.
a yes.
John Biscarden,
Yes.
Larry Cerisi,
Yes.
William Mudge,
I'm abstaining.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. 6-4.
Discussion on the topic.
So now we're in discussion on the topic.
Okay, now.
Mr. Biscarden, did you want, since you brought this up, did you want to go any further with that?
No, I think I pretty much made myself clear the first time. Thank you.
Do you want to make a motion?
Oh, I'd like to make a
then-
motion to rescind our vote from last evening and take the arbiter's suggestion of 0% salary increase.
Do I have a second? All right, I will, okay, Mrs. Benson has seconded that. All right, so there is now discussion on the main motion. Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I said earlier, I think I certainly understand the position and concern of my colleagues, and I respect that. My feeling on this is, again, to try to maintain some level of consistency across these contracts that we visit. So although this may be something that we have no choice but to revisit, there's other areas in the budget that I'd prefer to discuss and revisit prior to voting to rescind this 1% increase that we voted to expend last night. I'll end on that.
Mrs. Avanzato.
You know what? I'm sorry. Can I just take another second? Sure.
You may.
Thank you. You know, I'm trying to approach this from a finance and a budgetary perspective, not a personal perspective. I will note, I went against the grain of the administrative's recommendation and the arbitrator's recommendation last night by proposing this 1% increase, because I thought it was the fair thing to do. I thought it was the right thing to do based on checks and balances of what we've done with past contracts and where we started out in these negotiations. And I'm gonna maintain that position, despite the fact that I will say, on a personal level, on my way of walking out of this auditorium last night, I was told by one of the members of the bargaining unit to take that 1% and stick it up my you-know-what. So, but I'm going to, again, put that aside, and I'm going to stick with doing business rather than making it personal, like some of the people have chosen to do. Thank you.
Mrs. Avanzato.
Well, I can't discuss this item without a discussion of the other items that were put in front of us by the administration. And I'm very reluctant, obviously, to reduce by a maintenance worker, given what the state of our buildings and what Mrs. King just said. I don't know whether there are any other possible areas for reductions. I voted yes to increase from 0 to 1% last night. I did agree with that. I did think that that was fair. And I did think that that was trying to deal with these contracts evenly. I understand why the motion is being made and appreciate Mr. Buscardin's reasoning, but I don't know if there are other areas. You know, I mean, if this is it that's on the sheet.
If I can address that, you know, at previous meetings, also very difficult meetings, we had talked about, you know, potential budget cuts, and we set things up in a couple of different categories, and you remember there was a red list. These items are off of that red list. There are some items on this page that just happen to have fallen in our favor, and, you know, and we found some areas to work, but the maintenance worker was on the red list. It's something that we would prefer not to do. And you know, there's a number of items on that red list, and this is the one that I think that, you know, I could most live with. Not that I would want to do it, but, you know, the other ones are more harsh, in my opinion. That's why I'm recommending this particular one. But that can go away if this vote is in favor of that 1% in order of, you know, how it was presented last night.
Mr. Mudge.
What is the bottom line budget number that we're working with for fiscal year 13?
It is $57,243,694, I believe.
Is that what we voted on tonight?
5,
Okay.
7,
I agree. That's the council's budget, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Now,
6.
this is what I'm trying to get to, is to get to this number, okay, we have already trimmed $1.7 million, okay, $1.4 million from the $60 million. So to get to this number, $57,243,000, we were $1.6 million short of the $58 million, okay, $737,000 budget that we submitted to the town council. Okay? So we were, from the budget we submitted, the $58,737,000 to the council, again, we're $1.6 million short of that. We've got $600 back from the council. How is it that somebody's going to show me why we're not in deficit $1 million tonight?
Because last night we approved $800,000 in cuts. That's why the number's around 200,000.
Mr. Cerisi. Oh, okay. All right, Mr. Busgarden.
So,
Mr. Busgarden has the floor.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that, I understand Mr. Cerisi's position. In fact, I agreed with him last evening, and I supported him and voted in favor of the 1% increase. However, after I started reviewing things in my head and looking at things on the sheet, for example, if we don't, if the motion fails, then we will potentially be reducing a high school special education services teacher, special ed services teacher, and maybe even a after-school academic support. These are all things directly affecting children's opportunity for success, and in some cases, it's affecting the students who need it most. This doesn't necessarily affect the students who are on the honor roll or are in the top 10% of their class. This affects the kids that are struggling, and that's what I'm concerned about most. Thank you.
Mrs. Benson.
I'm going to support it because it affects all children. But Mr. Busgarden, by federal law,
Can I talk to you for a second?
Federal, which is the governing body of this whole country.
I understand.
You cannot cut special ed services if you have an IEP.
I'm just reading off the red list. I'm not. I don't.
I just wanted to correct you on that.
That's fine.
Now you know it won't be a special ed.
Okay, correction. I accept it.
It won't be a special
All right.
ed teacher.
Mr. Mudge, and then we're going to take the vote.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I went through a lot of work to try to help everyone understand this process. And if you refer back again to the budget packet, even 2 weeks ago that I submitted, I listed all the cuts. Is it possible now that we could get a list of all the cuts that have been made, okay, including the ones last night, that, based on the $58 million budget that was $58,737 that was sent to the town council? I mean, there's a whole bunch of other issues in here, and I just feel it's a shame.
Yes, Mr. Mudge, you can get that list, but you will not get it right here at this meeting. That will not be.
Well, I
That's not
think it would have
something
been
you would be able to do.
helpful.
If you had asked maybe this morning, that would have been something we could have pulled together, but asking it at 9:53 in the evening, it is not possible at this
I kind of asked when to be on the agenda a couple of times when I submitted this budget to make sure we understood it. Okay?
Yes, are we ready to take the vote?
So, by the way, one other question, please.
No.
So,
You
do we
had
have,
your time, Mr.
please,
Mudge.
do
No.
we have any school fund surplus
roll
left
call
over
vote,
that we can
please.
allocate to this, $200,000?
Linda Avanzado.
Do we have any school surplus we could allocate and not make these?
Okay, we are taking the roll call vote on Mr. Busgarden's motion. Lorraine, could you read the motion, please, and then we will take the roll call vote. I'm sorry.
What's the fiscal, what's the fiscal impact, okay?
That is not a point of order. Continue.
I don't know what the right word is, but
Increase.
can anybody answer me, do we still have $1 million in reserve for fund balance
Mr.
coming into this year?
Okay, we're taking a roll call vote. Mrs. Avanzado, you're the first one up.
So we're going to preserve the $1 million we have in surplus?
Mrs. Avanzato, you're the first one up. No, you're taking a vote.
Boy, you talk about,
For the reduction?
yeah, right.
To accept the
You even have the
1%?
freaking right numbers.
Yes. 0%.
0%.
0%.
0%?
Yes.
Yes.
Doesn't mean anything, you know.
John Biscardi.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
No.
William Mudge.
Nope.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2.
Going to be excused, please, thank you.
Okay, we have, still have the rest of the 2012-2013 budget, and you have before you the sheet that has down in the lower left-hand corner, SBJB final.
It is my recommendation that you would make the additional cuts to get to a balanced budget to include the food service reductions not made on 625. That would actually be an additional $31,000. Then the cuts to make up everything with that would be recognizing additional teacher retiree breakage that we've discovered since the last time we've met, $41,474. State reimbursement of non-public textbooks restored. That was something that did not pass in the legislature that we had thought would. For 15.
It's the other way around. I'm sorry, it did pass, and we didn't think it would.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. $15,000. 3 food service retiree resignations with no benefits attached to that, $39,000. We would reduce 2 food service workers as part of a reorganization. Basically, we would be looking at not preparing food at Wickford and Davisville. This is something, an opportunity that we can kind of take advantage of and save some money. And we would reduce maintenance supplies by $26,357.
I need a clarification on this one.
No, the act that you just made makes it possible to avoid cutting the maintenance worker that is on that list.
All right, Mrs. Benson.
Dr. O'Jay, up at the top you have reduce 2 food service workers as part of negotiation. Reorganization. Does that reorganization entails outsourcing?
No.
So we won't be getting rid of cafeteria workers?
No. We have some retirements that we're taking advantage of here, Mrs. Benson.
Okay.
And the reorganization piece basically means that we would not be preparing food at Wickford and Davisville as we have been. We would be preparing food primarily at the high school and delivering to those schools like we do in other locations.
Okay, that is what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have a motion to approve these expenditures as, I heard you, we can have further discussion in a moment. Do we have a motion to approve these expenditures as Dr. Ajay has outlined?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Okay, now we can, for discussion, Mr. Welch, and then Mrs. Benson.
I have to say, Dr. O'Shea, I hope we can find a way to put the maintenance supplies back in, because we have to take care of the buildings, and that's, for years, this school department, present company excluded, has rated maintenance, and the school buildings have suffered accordingly. So I'm going to suggest that while I support putting the maintenance worker back in, I also support putting the money back in for maintenance supplies.
Mrs. Benson.
Dr. O'Jay, I think all of us through the years have been negligent on supplies. And it haven't been given to us no bigger picture than what we're going through at Vanessa. Purchase orders have been written, but they've never been. And if this is going to ensure that we not put 21 taxpayers on the unemployment line, I can buy that, because we haven't bought supplies anyway. I think I'm in a position to state things that I know because I've been in this system. You always got a chit from the superintendent's office the last month of the year, order what you need. And you've been needing paper towels all the year. And Mr. Welch, since me and you've been on the committee, we've had notes going home at the beginning of school that parents buy wipes for their kids' hand when we were discussing, it was the Vogue thing that we must wash our hands, and a list. So we've all been guilty of that.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Benson. All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Do we have any more discussion? All right, let's vote.
I just want to be clear that one item that I neglected to point out was the reduction in the professional development funding, which is also 13.5. It's also on your list, but I just neglected to point that one out.
So would that be part of our motion that we would
Yes.
be asking for? Okay. So just to clarify, it would be everything in the top section except for the maintenance worker, and in the bottom section, it would be the further reduced professional development funding by $13,539. Is that what the motion is?
Yes, that's the motion.
Okay, thank you.
That's the motion that I was supporting.
Yes, John just said
Because, you know,
that's it.
people wonder, Miss Page, the teachers have been to school and the kids out of school all the time. That was a big thing. And like I said...
Mrs. Benson, I'm just clarifying what the motion
Okay.
is. Mrs.
And I'll give you the
Avanzato.
name, Dr. O'Day, of a person that retired,
Mrs. Avanzato has the floor.
that will come in and help you with...
Mrs.
the
Avanzato
person
has the floor.
Quick question, in terms of the professional development line, that's being added because when we take the maintenance worker out and we account for what we just did, we still need the additional. Okay, just wanted a
Yes.
clarification on that.
You need that 13,500 to make budget.
Mr. Welch.
What does that leave us with professional development? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I don't know if Michelle does or not.
And perhaps that may be something that we can switch
visit it.
around when
We
we
have to
come back
balance
in
the budget.
August.
Yes.
But for right now,
Yes.
we need a balanced budget. So, you know, it's one of those things that when we come back in August, hopefully we can...
We have
can-
some different information.
All right. All right. Let's take the roll call vote, please, Lorraine.
Melvoin Benson.
Yes.
John Buscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge. Is he gone? He's gone. Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzato.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
it's now 10 o'clock. Is there anything left on this that we have to get through tonight?
Yes, we need to approve the strategic plan. We need to approve the two items on the policy. One has to be approved by June 30th. Do we need to approve anything? We need to approve the CIP
And G.
and item G.
And H.
And H. So let's go on to the strategic plan.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is that a necessity for this reason? That's an important topic, and we're going to be shoving it into 30 seconds, basically, so...
It is an important topic, and it is important we approve it because it then sets in motion how we're planning for the rest of this year.
Okay.
There's only one, we've discussed this, there's one quick change. You requested to add, prioritize, like using the CIP to address buildings items. That's the only thing we added. Otherwise, it's basically the discussion we already had, and I think everyone was pretty much in favor of the whole plan.
Okay, excellent. Thank
So
you.
do I have a motion to approve the CIP?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the strategic plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those, in Mrs. Benson.
Dr. O'Day, would you explain what you just said?
The last time we talked about the strategic plan, the only area that people had any issue on was about facilities, and people were looking to kind of prioritize items. We do that through our CIP. We have a prioritized list of things that we need to get to for repairs, and that was simply recognized within the strategic plan. Other than that, my sense was that the committee was in favor of what they saw in the plan.
All right, all those in favor of approving the I keep saying that, the strategic plan, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, we have here for the CIP, Dr. Auger has requested that we transfer $200,000 from the fund balance to work on the summer projects. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All right, do we need any further conversation on this?
That HVAC?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Oh, Mr. Buskard.
One question. Is this $200,000, is that,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed, okay, not to exceed, thank you. And is it just for the HVAC, technology, infrastructure, and classroom technology? Are those the only three items, or are there other items involved?
Those are the only three that I have in mind for this.
And if something changes, you'll let us know?
Yes.
And then how would we go about?
We wouldn't have approval for that. He'd have to come back.
There is a kind of a discretionary item coming up, item G, on the agenda, which is a different piece.
Okay, all right, thank you, sorry.
Yep.
All right, so is there any further discussion?
No.
All right,
Oh, wait a
Mrs.
minute.
Benson.
Not for discussion, but for an expression, if I have your permission.
Make it quick, Mrs. Benson.
I would just like to say that I'm glad that we came to this. And thank you, Mrs. Carroll, for working so diligently and working on this today. This is a much better deal than, are you surprised?
No, Mrs. Benson, we are talking about the CIP, transfer $200,000 from the fund balance to the summer project.
This whole thing that we are settling tonight.
I think you're talking about something else.
Well, I guess the day you were born, God gave you my brain, so I'll be quiet.
All right, all those in favor of approving the CIP for fund balance transfer, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We need to, all right, so Dr. Ajay, could you go over E?
Let Mary and Carol talk about this one.
Members of the committee, we've spent a great deal of time today going over a draft contract that we were provided by GCA. Unfortunately, we have a lot of unanswered questions in that contract. For example, there's things in there in terms of insurance that has to go to the trust. There are issues that we have some concerns with. Quite frankly, we're going to be recommending just a one-year contract with the second and third year as rollovers. And then we need to put in some of the issues that you talked about last night, that there would be a section that guaranteed our employees would get hired. And then something in here in terms of if there's pending litigation, that the contract would be null and void. So the bottom line is, we are not ready tonight to recommend the contract to you. However, it's going to take too long to wait until August 14th to approve the contract. So one of the things that we talked about today, and again, it's the wish of the committee, is that maybe we can negotiate back and forth, and that you can give authority to the chair and the vice chair to sign the contract for the committee. Again, we're very far away. It's not even though you can't even like approve it pending some of this action, and we would be remiss if we tried to rush it through. So even though we've spent a great deal of time and we've talked back and forth, the superintendent, Mrs. King and myself, there is no way we can get this done tonight. So again, we're looking for some kind of a direction where over the summer, rather than wait till August 14th, possibly that you could authorize the chair and the vice chair to sign the contract. Or any other solution you have, but there's no way we're ready tonight.
I would also like to just comment that I have been in contact with the representative from GCA multiple times today. So while Mrs. Carroll says that there are issues with the contract, she does not mean that there are issues with the company. It's just things that we have not worked out yet. And I have indicated several of these things to him, and I don't Dr. Ajay and I do not foresee a problem. So I don't want it to come across sounding like that, because that's not the case whatsoever.
Great.
So does a motion have to be made at this point to?
Well, again, we, and I agree with Mrs. King, it's not anything that's going to stop it, but there's language changes we need to have.
Right.
There's the trust needs to look at it.
Right.
So there are issues like that we need to clear up.
My question is to keep this moving and in a timely fashion, does a motion have to be made? In other words, for example, to take the suggestion that you made?
To authorize the chair and the
Yes.
vice chair to sign the contract once we worked it back and forth.
Yeah. So yes, a motion needs to be made for that?
Yes.
Then I'd like to make a motion to authorize Chairperson Kim Page and Vice Chair Dick Welsh to sign the contract once the particulars have been met, has been met to their satisfaction. In essence, giving them power of attorney.
I second that motion that things may move in a timely fashion, because with any contract, you have to go back and work out those little kinks. Am I correct?
May I offer an amendment to the motion?
So
Yes.
I second the motion.
What is your amendment, Mrs. Avanzaro?
I would ask,
Vote on the motion first.
I haven't made my amendment yet. I would ask for the proviso that the committee be informed of the changes and at least have an email exchange with each member of the committee before we would do that. That's what I would ask as an amendment.
I would second that.
Nothing wrong with that. But we just...
The only reason I hesitate, Mrs. Carroll, what
I'm
sort of...
concerned about an open meeting law
Yeah,
violation,
that's
because
my
then you're going to
first
have a
thought.
rolling quorum. We can't do that.
We won't reply, or you can send it to us individually, but this committee needs to see the details.
Right, and I agree with you, but do you want to have I mean, we can have a special meeting, it's just, I know you don't like to meet in July.
You could send it to us separately, and that, therefore, you avoid the Open Meetings Act violation.
No, that doesn't avoid it.
That doesn't
And
avoid
have a
it.
rolling quorum.
Administration can send it, can't they?
Mrs. Carroll.
For informational purposes only.
Again, I don't
What I
want...
would say is if you want to come in
Okay.
and read over the contract in Dr. Roger's office and give him feedback, that would probably be
Okay,
the
then
safest, but
I would
not
withdraw
say
my
we could-
amendment, and I'm going to, you withdraw your second, Dick?
Sure.
I'm going to make another amendment, a new amendment, that this committee be informed by email when the changes are being proposed, so that we each have an opportunity to come in and look at it in
That's
Phil's office. I'm not going to just secede,
No, I don't think...
I would like
yeah, I think,
notification.
so you're just being told to come in
Yeah,
the
come on in,
email
sit
that you
down.
need to take a look at it with Dr. Roger.
So we'd be notified, yes.
Right.
That's not against the Open Meetings Act.
We would notify you anyway, but...
Okay.
Do I have a
yeah,
second?
I'll second that. Why don't you make sure that it doesn't say that you're notified by email, but that you just are notified to come in and take a look at the contract?
Why don't we make it a little simple and
What are the
say
differences?
notification will be transmitted, given...
No, we don't need to do anything. We just say that everybody's
Because when you
notified to
have
come in and look at
emails, I
the...
don't want you coming up saying,
Mr. Cerisi.
you don't have email.
Madam Chair.
Then you're being quoted for me.
And I just said, Mrs. Benson, that we didn't have to do it that way. Mr. Cerisi.
Madam Chair, I think we're splitting hairs here. I think the administration can send out an informational correspondence to committee members. That's all you're doing. I don't even understand what we're discussing here. We receive informational correspondence from the superintendent on a daily basis, pretty much. This is no different than that. You're not taking a vote. You're not entering into a discussion. You're not violating the open meeting laws. You're receiving informational correspondence from the superintendent, just like we do every day.
I think the difference is that we all know we
Because some
respond.
members don't get it every day. That's the difference, Mr. Cerisi.
All right, so there's a motion, there's an amendment to the motion on the table. Mrs. Berglund, could you read back the amendment, please?
That this committee be informed by email when changes are being proposed, so we have the opportunity to come in.
Okay. All right, so let's vote.
And other means by the superintendent. If he called me,
That's
I will
fine.
come in.
We will always call you, Mrs. Benson. We know you don't
We
respond
don't
to email.
always. I'm making a petition.
All right, let's take a
I would agree with that.
a vote on the amendment.
You might as well start doing right, because I'll be sitting
Mrs.
here with you
Benson, we're
next
taking
year.
a roll call on the amendment.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Richard Welsh.
Yes.
Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Mel Boyd Benson.
Yes.
John Biscardi.
Yes.
All right, so let's take a roll call on the main motion.
Richard Welsh.
Would you read the
What
main
was
motion?
the main motion?
This is,
Okay.
It was my motion.
The chair and the vice chair
Okay.
to sign the...
Yes.
the end.
Authorizing when you sign it.
yep, authorizing, yep, the chair and the vice chair. Linda Avanzado.
Yes.
Mel Boyd Benson.
Yes.
John Biscardi.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
No.
William Mudge. Oh, he's not here. Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1.
Okay, then we need we need an action
Sarah,
because...
could you talk out? My sinuses is bothering me, and I've been sneezing, and my nose, and my ears is stopped up a little bit.
Did you say
God
something?
bless you. Hope you never get it.
He's just asking you to speak up a little bit.
Oh.
Hope you never get it.
Thank you.
Okay,
So do I.
we need authorization to send a letter of intent to GCA because they're coming in on July 1st. This contract's not going to be ready for July 1st. We need authorization to send them a letter of intent based on the action the school committee took last evening in order to award them a contract so that they're going to have to start with resources and before the contract is actually approved. So we need permission to send a letter of intent to GCA.
And what will that pertain?
That the school committee has passed a resolution to award them a bid pending the signing of the contract.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Is there anything else, Mrs. Carroll, that we need to do?
Not on that action item, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are now to item G. Dr. Ajay, could you discuss it?
This is basically, and this comes up every year, we get to a point where we meet in August, and there are a number of things that have come up over the summer, hiring of coaches or summer school personnel, that sort of thing, that has to happen without school committee permission, and then we go over the routine of, well, how do we allow that to happen, that sort of thing. What I'm asking for is your authorization to have spending authority for things that are time-sensitive expenses, such as staff hires for summer school coaches, facilities, repairs, and related expenses that are time-sensitive. I wouldn't say I'm going to fix the Davisville roof all by myself with this kind of money, but something that has to happen because of timing, and I can't get this to happen before an August 14th meeting.
And this would only be things that are budgeted, am I correct, Dr. Ajay?
These would only be things that are budgeted, yes.
Mr. Cerisi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Roger, I would trust you with my own personal checkbook.
I appreciate that.
There's not
You
much.
have to take that right now.
It's actually, there's no money in there, that's why I would trust you with. But this is a pretty broad authority that we have not done in past budget years, but I certainly understand your purposes for proposing it, and it's actually in response to complaints that the committee has had
Yes.
in past years. So I can support this, and I would just ask that we obviously keep this to time-sensitive items, and could we also, so the committee can stay updated as far as the personnel and as far as a budgetary basis, if we could be sent informational correspondence from your office as these items occur. And so I would offer a motion to approve this agenda item, again, with the request of receiving informational correspondence from your office, so we can be kept abreast of these items and how they impact our budget.
Sure.
Second that.
There's a motion, a second. Mr. Biscardi?
Well, I have all the faith in Dr. Ajay. I wouldn't trust him with my checkbook. I don't trust anybody with my checkbook. I barely trust my wife with my checkbook. So, but all kidding aside, I think I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable not meeting in July for one reason or two reasons. G, And the other is that the issues that we have going on with Quidnesset, I would like for us at least to get together once in July to review what's happening over Quidnesset with the floor, the drainage, and all those issues that are relevant to having that school ready for classes in the fall. And if we do that, then maybe we can also address some of the questions you have here with the spending that you need to get done when typically we're not in session. So I think I would like to make a motion that we do have a July meeting to review Quidnesset as well as authorize any summer spending that you may need to have done.
There's already a motion on the floor, so we
Can I
can't
amend
do it
you?
now, but I did ask earlier in the meeting, they asked for everybody's time schedule so that we could look into that, and what I would say is we can schedule a meeting, but let's wait and see if there are things that do come up that are time sensitive. Yes.
In light of Mr. Biscottin's motion, I will withdraw my motion from the floor and allow Mr. Biscottin to move forward with his motion.
Your motion was to
Approve. He's motioning to meet in July.
Where is it on the
Okay, let me second. I would like to,
I don't think that's on the agenda, but like I said, so we can't vote on that tonight because it's not on the agenda, but as I said earlier in the meeting, if you send out your time availability during the month of July, we can do something like that. I hear what the committee is saying, so that is something that we can schedule, but
Okay,
we can't take a
if
vote
you're
on that.
ruling Mr. Biscottin's motion out of order, I'll put my motion back on the floor.
Okay.
We'll say that motions about scheduling meetings are not subject to the open meetings law, as far as I recall.
But it's not on the agenda. It's not, you can have a rolling quorum to schedule a meeting, but we don't have anything on the agenda where we're going to make a motion tonight.
Right.
We can,
Yes, but
I support,
they do give privileges for emergencies, and I think
We
if
don't
that
have an
lady got
emergency.
the proper letter, this would be considered an emergency.
I support Mr. Biscottin's idea, even though we can't have that discussion or vote on that tonight. So I would ask that the chair and the superintendent get together and with the clerk and maybe look to set a date for a mid-July meeting so we could catch up on these pending items. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
G?
All right. That brings us down to...
Point of order, Madam Chair. Is this absolutely critical? Because I want to make a motion to adjourn. We're past our adjourning time.
I will take 30 seconds, I promise.
Sorry, go ahead. If it's something you need done, that's fine.
Actually, it kind of is. Quickly, this is the $9 million, the remainder of the $9 million bond that was from 2004. There's approximately $1.8 million that's remaining. Michael Embry and the town council had suggested to Dr. Auger probably 6 weeks ago that they were going to consider expunging that debt, which meant we would not be able to use those funds. Michael asked that we provide them with a list or a recommendation from the facilities subcommittee on what we would spend those funds on, should we be allowed to use them. We met June 18th with the facilities subcommittee, and we need to stay within the parameters of that original bond, meaning we need to stay within the schools that were under that bond, that were recommended under that bond, and one of those schools was Wickford Middle School. And the facilities subcommittee has recommended that we focus all funds, if we are allowed to use them, on that school in this order: replacing boilers and related plumbing, other plumbing issues, window repairs and replacement, and roof repairs, in that order, clearly as money allows. So what we're asking tonight is that the school committee agrees to allow us to move forward with that so that I can speak to Michael, or Dr. Auger can speak to him, and let the town council decide whether or not they're going to expunge that debt or they're going to let us move forward to use it.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to adjourn?
We have two
Second.
policies that we have to have here by RIDE.
Okay.
Okay, so
This is the last thing.
I would ask if people could approve the policy KHB and JBA2.
So moved.
second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We were supposed to have sent our our asset management person to the town council. They did extend their deadline till today. We only have one person, so unless we're not going to send the name forward, we should do that today.
We'll motion to appoint Mr. Seabury.
All right, so we will send over the name. So we have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Madam Chair, could you tell us, that one name, is it,
The one name is Cliff
Seabury.
Seabury.
yes.
Yes, we
Yes.
sent it.
Actually,
To be abreast.
he has already been appointed last night as an at-large representative, so I don't even know if we have
Let me see.
anyone.
But he's a
All
school
those in
committee.
favor say yes, and that was the end of it.
So,
He's still, yeah. I made a motion to
They
adjourn.
don't meet until October, I mean, it was, what's the hurry? I'm not blaming you,
Right, I know.
they didn't need it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adjourn. I did want to discuss something under new business, but I can understand the committee's reluctance. And I can see you getting up. So all those in favor of
Aye.
adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Okay, thank you.